Let's take one more trip into the upside down. I mean, the further. As Daddy and son Lambert's forgotten memories begin to resurface with jump scares. Scares that jump, and boos that jump out at you. Let's revisit this spooktacular family one last time in Insidious Red Door. Hello there, you loose innocents, and welcome back to another episode of Spicy Boy Reviews. I'm, of course, your host, Andrew Iles. That's right, Insidious number 5, or number 3 if you're continuing with the Lambert story here. Directed by lead star actor himself, Patrick Wilson, with his directorial debut. We revisit the Lambert family 9 years later after Chapter 2, and it seems that the hottest grandma in the world has kicked the bucket. I wonder if she'll pop up in the further later on in the film. Nope. Not at all. No cheeky cameo here. She looked at this movie and said, "Fuck this shit, I'm out, no thanks." We learn that Daddy Josh Lambert and Wifey Poos here, played by Rose Byrne, are now divorced 9 years later. Because Renee, his wife, got sick of, dealing with the kids' nightmares, of suppressed memories of Daddy Poos trying to kill them at the end of part 2. Deciding it was easier to explain that their father was possessed by just getting a divorce. I mean, that sounds fair. In Josh's defense, he was possessed by a cross-dressing serial killer, but she's a high-valued woman who deserves better. We also learn that oldest son Dalton is off to college to study art. He's all grown up, and he has more attitude than WWE in 1998. He has ripped jeans, long greasy hair, AirPods, and a sketchbook full of drawings because no one understands him. His relationship with his father, Josh, is strained at best, and they decide the best way to reconnect their relationship is for Josh to drive Dalton to college, having a bit of a road trip, which can only go well. They, of course, end up in an argument. Dalton says some really hurt things, and Josh has a bit of a teary on the side of the road. And then, on with the plot. Dalton then gets a quirky roommate here by the name of Chris, who turns out to be a girl? Awkward! As the movie progresses, we see Dalton and Josh try to struggle piecing together parts of their memory that seems to be missing from a certain point in their life. Because, as we all know, their memories were erased at the end of Chapter 2. Then Dalton starts seeing jump scares galore. And so does Josh. It seems these ghosts are trying to tell them something. This tomfoolery goes on for the majority of the film, before Dalton discovers astro projection. For those of you who don't know, the further is a realm sort of mirroring ours, an upside down, if you will. And it's a realm where, it's sort of like limbo, where ghosts and souls sort of dwell, as well as demons. And some people have the ability to astro project, by putting their souls into the further and wandering around this realm. Which, for all intents and purposes, you should totally do. Dalton relearns about the further and astro projection through a crowbarred-in cameo from writer and creator Lee Winnell and Angus Sampson's character from the previous film via a YouTube clip, because I guess Joe Rogan was too busy eating elk meat and shelving mushrooms. Then Dalton decides to muck around in the further, which can only go well. Then we have about 20 minutes left of film, so I've got to cram in the end the pretty much watered down, sped up version of the end of the first film. The end! The first half of this film I really, really enjoyed. It was a bit of a slower pace, a good pace, but slower. And it was all revisiting the Lambert family 9 years later, and it was pretty much a family drama. And to be honest, this felt like the film that Patrick Wilson really wanted to make. Because he took his time, and a lot of effort went into this sort of family drama in the first half, and then sort of the horror element was tacked on at the end. And in saying that, when the horror element gets rediscovered of the further and astro projection, it's all stuff that the audience, us, we already know. So the film is at a disadvantage that way because the whole film is a discovery of something that we're fully aware of. Kind of the same problem that Predator 2 had, in a way. It's like the first film, Predator, was all about a discovery of what is this thing, where is it from, what is it doing? And in the second one, we know exactly what it's doing and what it is. So having a whole film about discovering something that we are well aware of, like I said, the film was at a bit of a disadvantage that way. Patrick Wilson is always solid here. He knows his character inside and out. He's a very underrated actor. And I've got to say, him behind the camera, he does a pretty bloody good job, especially like I aforementioned with the first half of the film. But this film, without a doubt, is absolutely Ty Simpkins' movie. He's the star. He's front row and center. It's pretty much his story. Although Josh has, a storyline in it, it's all sort of Dalton's movie. And he also gets top billing above Patrick Wilson at the beginning as well. I think he's going to go on to do some really good work in the future. Also, Dalton's roommate, Chris, is an interesting character here, I thought. She's quirky, she's a bit left of centre, and, she's kind of the comic relief, really. And I've got to say, the actor was quite charming. Of course, it's an Insidious movie, so gotta have dem jump scares, but like every modern horror film, you can hear and see them coming a mile away. But the film really did something cool and creepy, I have to admit. There's a few scenes where there was, I guess, ghosts or spirits in the background that are slowly creeping up, but the character in the forefront of the frame didn't know what was going on. We as an audience can see it creeping up slowly and slowly and slowly, and it was very unsettling and super tense. To be honest, with this film though, I don't know what the point of it was. I get the theme of suppressed memories, no matter how haunting certain memories are, you've kind of got to give them their due and, have their time in the sun somewhat so you can move past and learn from them. So you don't bury them and they come out in more toxic ways. But the point of making the film in the first place, I'm not so sure why. As I mentioned before, it's all about a rediscovery of something that us, the audience, already know. And like I said, the last 20 minutes was the climax, or at least the second half of the first film, just crammed in and watered down. And it was really rushed. Like it just barreled through, especially with the cameo from the Darth Maul demon. I would have loved to have seen a movie sort of loosely based on this creature from the first movie. Like, what is it? What is its purpose? Who is it? That's kind of what we got in part 2. It was sort of a detective story, a discovery, if you will, of who Parker Crane actually was. I really wanted that with this film, with the Darth Maul demon. And there's even a somewhat introduction to a new character from the past that was buried. But all that story gets really rushed over. We get some quick little explanations with stuff in newspapers, and boom, moved on. Again, I would have loved to see more of a backstory of this character, not just quickly, sweeping it under the rug. I honestly think the reason for this film existing was so Patrick Wilson can get behind the camera. He wanted to give directing a go. He's a well-known actor, especially in the genre of horror, so Blumhouse chucked him a bone. But yeah, you can definitely tell that the first half of the film with the family drama is a film that he really wanted to make. And I guess the Insidious franchise has a bit of a nostalgia factor to it, I suppose. I mean, yeah, I guess it's 10 years later, so yeah. My cinema, late on a Sunday night, was absolutely packed for this film, so it says to me that horror is alive and well. Anyway, guys, that's my cheeky review of Insidious Red Door. Write down if you've seen it, what are your thoughts on it, and what's your favourite installment in the Insidious franchise. And of course, if you made it this far into the episode, please give me a thumbs up, because your love and support keeps me going, because I just love movies, and I assume you do as well. And of course, don't forget to hit that subscribe icon, because I give it an episode weekly. And I'll see you back here next week for the next review, and until then, stay spooky, kids.